Ladies and gentlemen of UV Tennis, welcome to Indian Wells. My name is Vanni Gibertini. I'm here with
John Horn
from TSN, the Canadian network that is covering the event. This is, well, day -1, shall we call it?
Oh, -1, sure. I guess we can call it that. Yeah, things get really get started tomorrow, I guess, yeah.
So the qualifying tournaments are underway, but there's been quite a lot of excitement here in the Indian Wells ground. First of all, because early in the afternoon, the number 1 seed of the women's men's draw has announced her withdrawal. Serena Williams will not be coming to Indian Wells this year. She had been missing this tournament for 15 years before coming back in 2015. She had to retire in the semi-final in 2015. She got to the final last year when she was defeated by Victoria Azarenka, and this year her knee prevented her from coming here, and it will prevent her to go to Miami as well. What do you think?
Well, I mean, it's surprising. I mean, I don't think anybody knew that this was going to be the case. The fact that she hadn't played since the Australian Open, not really that much of a surprise. And the fact that Serena doesn't play as many tournaments as a lot of the other players on tour. I mean, when you're world number 1, you've got a lot of money in the bank. You don't have to play as much. But she just isn't right, and her knees are bothering her, and that's what she said after the announcement came out, which caught everybody by surprise. The website for the tournament had her picture on it, and they were promoting her. There's posters all over saying. So after the draw was done, I think everyone was surprised that she was actually not going to play, because usually with an injury, a player will announce that they're not playing, like Milos Raonic did beforehand, before the draw, so then they don't have to reshuffle the draw. So now they've had to reshuffle the draw. I'm sure it's a bit of a pain, but she can't play, and she's a big draw for women's tennis, and she's a big draw for everybody who was here to see her. So unfortunate that she can't play here, and she's not going to be able to play in her home tournament in Miami as well. So big blow for both tournaments as well as the women's draw, and for fans alike too.
But we didn't have time to process the news of Serena not coming here before we had another shock, because at 3 p.m. the men's draw ceremony actually took place, and right at the end we realized that a group of death was being born.
Yeah.
Because the bottom quarter of the draw sees Rafael Nadal and Roger Federer potentially meet in the round of 16, but not only that, Rafael Nadal and Djokovic are in the same quarter, and Novak Djokovic will have to debut in this tournament probably against Kyle Edmund.
Yeah.
Round 3 would be against most likely Juan Martín del Potro again, and then he will have to meet somebody between probably Rafael Nadal and Roger Federer in the quarterfinals.
Yeah, and he's probably got Nick Kyrgios in between
Yeah,
that
exactly.
in the 4th round. So, I mean, you just keep throwing out those names, and don't forget Alexander Zverev's in there
as well.
It's absolutely crazy. When I saw the names as they were popping up one after the other, and then we got right down to the end, and Del Potro's name was the very last name that came out of the bucket. It was almost fitting that he was part of the draw. I mean, when you look at the talent pool in that bottom of the draw. Not to say that the other quarters aren't tough too in some ways, but this is truly the group of death in this tournament. And I personally, it's been a while since I've seen a quarter of a draw this big that's been this stacked. I mean, obviously with Federer not being a top seed, he's a 9th seed this year. Nadal's seed has dropped a little bit too, and so is Del Potro's, obviously, because of the injuries from in the past. This is why it's all played out like this. Normally you wouldn't see this, but the fact that Djokovic is going to have to go through likely Edmund, Del Potro, Kyrgios, and then Federer and Nadal just to get to the semifinals, and the way that he's been playing, which hasn't been great, I mean, it's going to be an outstanding tournament in that quarter, just to watch what happens.
Yeah, I mean, Novak Djokovic has arrived here. He's playing right now. He's training right now on Stadium 1 with David Goffin.
Yeah.
Now there have been some news coming out of Serbia earlier this week, where after following an interview that he gave to Serbian television, he declared that tennis is not his main priority right now. He's a family man. He's married. He has a son, and tennis is not at the top priority right now. What do you think that means for Novak Djokovic's career?
Well, I mean, it's shocking to hear that, in the fact that he's been so adamant about how tennis has been the biggest part of his life. And look, he's got a young son. I believe he might have another child coming on the way. and just everything that he's gone through off the court as well. I mean, sometimes you have to put things in perspective, and you know what? When you're Novak Djokovic, kind of like Serena Williams, when you've won so much, when you've done so much in the sport, and look, the last 3 years or so, he's been on a run like no other player has been in. I mean, there was a run there where he was in every tournament, he was in every final, and if he wasn't in the final, he was winning every tournament until midway through last year. He won his French Open last year. He had the calendar Grand Slam all at once, or the career Grand Slam all at once. He's had a remarkable run. So sometimes you have to take a step backwards and look at life and what you've got in front of you. And I know he lost in the second round of the Australian Open, and then he went and played for Serbia in the Davis Cup, which he hadn't done for a while because normally he doesn't lose that early in the Australian Open. And then he went to Acapulco to play there just to get some match time there as well. He ended up losing to Nick Kyrgios. So it's been a bit of a blip on the radar for him. He hasn't played great, and I'm not sure where his season will go at this point. I mean, he's still the number 2 player in the world. He's there for a reason. He did win a tournament early in the year before the Australian Open, so I wouldn't count him out for his year. But when somebody says that their focus is more so off the court with his personal life than it is on court, you have to wonder where things are going to go for this year.
Well, we'll have to see what that will mean for Djokovic's chances in this tournament. We will be here throughout the event, and we'll be back to you in the next few days, telling you all the stories that have been developing in and out the court here in Indian Wells.
Looking
thank
forward
you.
to it.
Thank you to John, and thank you. See you later.